Hello friends, welcome to the recap, the show where we go through some of the major talking points from this most recent round of Premier League fixtures. Today we talk Aston Villa's demolishing performance of Newcastle United, Wolves getting yet another 3 points in their fight for survival, Chelsea being absolutely humiliated by Brighton and Hove Albion, and have Arsenal thrown away the title and handed it to Manchester City. All of that coming up today in the recap. Please like the video and subscribe, it really would mean a lot to me. But now, let's talk football. Up first, we have Aston Villa 3, Newcastle 0. It was such a shocking result, but one we should have seen coming. Aston Villa really giving it to Newcastle. They had everything in this game, as you can see from the attacking momentum bar, especially in the first half. Villa were just on top, and then in the second half Newcastle started to come into it, but Villa really did make the most of the chances that they created. If I scroll down just to show you where the attacking positions were, Villa sets up what it seems to be here in a 4-2-3-1, but I actually think it was more of a 4-4-2. Buendia and Watkins really stuck together, and then you had this four of Ramsey, Luiz, Dendoncker and McGinn. But what was interesting in the way that Unai Emery set this team out was that John McGinn and Jacob Ramsey played very infield. They cut inside, and this allowed for the likes of Ashley Young and Alex Moreno to really start bombing on down the wings, depending on what side of the pitch the ball was on. This meant that Ollie Watkins was able to spin in behind depending on where that was. So for example, if Ramsey has the ball, he's able to play in behind for Watkins to spin in behind, and then vice versa on the other side. But the benefit of coming infield from the two wingers, who aren't really wingers if we're honest, they're just extra centre midfield players, and the wing play comes from the fullbacks. This gives Villa extra width, it gives them extra dynamism in midfield, but also it gives them extra bodies in the box so they're able to flood Newcastle and stop them from trying to break up those lines of play. Buendia did a very good job defensively of coming inside, and then defensively for Aston Villa, they really did become a 4-4-2 with these ones sticking together, Buendia and Watkins shuffling across when needs be. It was an extremely impressive performance from Aston Villa. If we have a look at the average positions, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here we have the two centre-backs. This is Ashley Young, this is Moreno. They have the full width of the pitch, and then you have John McGinn coming inside, you have Jacob Ramsey coming inside here, and they come up and deal with the rest of the midfield, and it just floods that midfield area. And we know that Newcastle like to really go through the midfield themselves, and Villa really did stop that. It was an extremely impressive performance, Ollie Watkins being that standout performer as well, with the fullbacks utilising all of that space, and then they had the massive overloads in the midfield to dominate Newcastle. And it must be said that Newcastle did not turn up in this game. I thought they were very, very poor. While Ollie Watkins will be the star man, I think Newcastle will be extremely disappointed with the way they played and the way they put themselves out. All of them, to a T, pretty much didn't put in a performance, and they were outworked, outfought, and just outgunned by a very, very impressive Aston Villa side. And it's shown in the stats here. 1.93 expected goals to 0.52. Newcastle barely got a shot on target with only 2. Aston Villa with their 16 total shots. So impressive, and they even missed some chances as well. If I show you here, 3 big chances, 2 of them missed, and yet they still won the game at 3-0. An extremely impressive performance in Aston Villa. They now have a load of wins on the bounce, and they are gunning for those European places. Extremely impressive. Chelsea. We will eventually do a recap where we don't have to talk negatively about Chelsea and actually have something decent to say. This, however, is not one of them. Brighton beat them by 2-1, and to be honest, it should have been a whole lot more. Brighton absolutely obliterated them, and I mean pounded them into the ground. It was embarrassing at certain points. Look at this attacking momentum bar. Look at this. This is at Stamford Bridge. Stamford Bridge. I mean, honestly, what were Chelsea doing? I can tell you what Chelsea were doing. The answer is not a lot. If we scroll down and just have a look at how this team set up, Frank Lampard was brought in to bring some kind of good vibes, some kind of positive energy, and I don't know where that's gone because it really didn't materialise in this game. Kepa really did keep them in it, and he was by far Chelsea's best player. But apart from that, Brighton were absolutely sensational. They had to deal with some injuries themselves, but really, the amount of passes they played, the amount of intricate detail that they have in every every single attack. Mitoma was an absolute nightmare, and he obliterated this Chelsea right-hand side. Zakaria didn't know whether to come or to go. He didn't know how far to drop. Fofana was absolutely rinsed every single time Mitoma got the ball. Chalobah tried to push up a little bit further, but then was stopped by Pulisic and Estupinian, who was going the other way. It was a schooling in how to play attacking football. If we have a look at the average positions, you can see exactly what I'm talking about here, with Chalobah, Fofana and Zakaria essentially occupying the same space, and that was because of one player and one player only, and that was Mitoma, who absolutely obliterated them. We can see, apart from that, Chelsea have some decent positions, but they failed to do anything with the ball. I thought Mudryk drove quite well. They were very fortunate with the deflected goal that they got, and apart from that, they didn't do anything in the game. Brighton, however, look at these average positions. This is just a dream. These are the back four, this is the midfield three, and then you have the attacking three. Just fantastic. Mitoma was one of my players to watch. He was absolutely fantastic, and he was just brilliant throughout the entire game. I thought that McAllister was great. Caicedo was obviously fantastic. Gross with his crossing for that Danny Welbeck goal was brilliant as well. Just Brighton are the best football playing side in the league at the moment for me. They are just great, and Chelsea did not stand a chance. I'm not kidding you. Look at these statistics. This is embarrassing. 2.94 expected goals, 57% possession. It should have been more. 26 shots. Remember, Chelsea are at home. They're at home. Remember this. I mean, Frank Lampard came after the game and said that his Chelsea players didn't do the basics. They didn't do anything right, let alone the basics. 10 shots on target. It's just embarrassing, honestly. And I'm starting to find that it's a bit difficult to talk about because there's nothing more to say. They lack desire, they lack determination, they lack quality, they lack cohesion, they lack a simple aspect of playing as a team. It's like they don't know each other, which guess what? They don't, because they haven't played with each other for more than 6 months. It's just embarrassing. 5 big chances missed for Brighton. So if they take their chances, it could have been 7-1. Think about that. Just think about that. It's absolutely embarrassing. Chelsea need the season to end now, and they need the season to end before it gets a whole lot worse. But guess what? They have some more games coming up, and those games are not pretty. Brighton, however, are absolutely fantastic, and they are going from strength to strength. Could Europe be on the horizon for them? I feel like a lot of channels don't actually mention some of the teams at the bottom, and specifically I don't think they mention Wolverhampton Wanderers as many times as they should. We are different here, because I thought the Wolves put in an extremely good performance against a good Brentford side coached by a very good manager. Ivan Toney has 18 Premier League goals this season, but this was one of the occasions where I think he barely got a sniff, and we can see that they did a very good job, Wolves did, of making sure they dominated possession, they dominated the attacking areas, and they made sure they converted the chances that they created. Yes, Diego Costa's goal was very fortunate, but he deserved it. He did a good amount of work throughout this game, and he was dangerous, he was mobile, he played through the lines, and Joao Gomez, I would just want to say, was absolutely sensational yet again. The way that he managed to really win his ground duels, 8 out of his 10 ground duels won. That is extremely impressive, and considering the fact that he's only very young, I am really impressed with this kid. He's going to get better, and if we have a look at the attacking positions, we're starting to see Wolves really start to creep in to some good form now. Lopetegui is really beginning to create something special here. This is the back four, as you can see, and then you have these four. Look at the spacing. The two central midfielders are next to each other. This is without Ruben Neves, remember. You have the likes of Mateus Nunes cutting inside. You have Sarabia cutting inside, making sure the midfield is very congested. Remember that Aston Villa game. Then you have the space for the fullbacks to come over, and it means that you have also the space for 2 main strikers. We know that Wolves have been struggling to score goals. However, if you get more strikers on the pitch, you're going to get a better opportunity. And the way that they dominated possession, the way that they made sure that they were able to really dictate the flow of the game, I was very impressed. And slowly but surely, you're starting to see Lopetegui's Wolves come come into fruition. Brentford, on the other hand, were fairly disappointing, I thought. Yes, their positioning is okay, but they failed to get Ivan Toney really into the game, and that really just stopped any kind of momentum that Brentford wanted to try and do. Only 4 out of his 8 ground duels, and then he didn't win an aerial duel entirely in the game, and that's different from what we expect this Brentford side to be. Yes, they play through the lines quite well, and yes, they understand how they're meant to progress, but you need to hit Toney, and aerially they just weren't able to get anything going. If we have a look at some of the statistics as well, we can see that although Brentford really did try in certain occasions and they had higher expected goals, Wolves actually had 9 shots on target, 11 total shots, 51% possession, and these are the hallmarks of a good side starting to play some good football. The confidence is starting to come back, and I think it's extremely impressive the way that they were able to handle this up-and-coming Brentford side, who are no slouchers, by the way. They are a very good outfit, and I thought the Wolves dealt with them extremely well. Not enough people talk about the way that Lopetegui is starting to transform Wolves, but I think now we're starting to see some green shoots, and perhaps if they stay in the Premier League going on to next season, we might see them get back up the table. Nothing too much to worry for Brentford, I don't think. I just think it was a bad day at the office. They really don't have all too much to play for at the moment. They're sitting in 9th or 10th, I believe, and they're about mid-table form. They're not really going to be pushing for those European spaces anymore, I don't think, and at the same time, Wolves have a whole lot to play for, being that they're still stuck in that relegation battle, but a very, very good performance nonetheless. Well, fair play, Wolves, fair play. We know the Premier League title race gives us twists and turns, but who saw this one coming? Arsenal 2, West Ham 2. Arsenal were 2-0 up after about 10 minutes, and I was extremely impressed with the way they started out. We saw that Liverpool game, and we saw them capitulate almost towards the end, becoming very, very hesitant at playing the ball out. Liverpool were dominant, Liverpool was so very impressive, and they failed to really establish themselves in that game. So when they came out after 10 minutes and really started to dominate the game, I mean, look at this attacking momentum bar. I mean, that is extremely impressive. West Ham, yes, have not been great, and yes, West Ham allowed them to come onto them, but Arsenal still needed to do their business. Some of the football they played was absolutely spectacular. If you can see here, 10 minutes and they were already 2-0 up. Then Benrahma gets the penalty in the 33rd minute, and really we need to talk about that penalty, because was it handball? Possibly. Was it a penalty? Absolutely. Gabriel cannot go to ground there, even though he's pulling out of the challenge. The fact that his momentum takes him into Paquetá and crosses over his line of play, it just means it's a penalty. It's always going to be given. There isn't enough to overturn it from VAR. It's not a clear and obvious error, so penalty. And that is the moment that gave West Ham hope. What were Arsenal thinking? The game was dead and buried, honestly. The game was finished. Now, obviously, we know that anything can happen in a game of football. Clearly, anything can happen. But you don't give the emphasis over to the opposition if you're Arsenal. This is the second game in a row that they've done something rather foolish, and I just don't think they needed to. On top of that, I wasn't too impressed with the way they actually played their game. With their setup, I don't think it was exactly correct, and I'll explain why. When Arsenal play at their very best, they have Alexander Zinchenko. Now, he was injured for this game, which is absolutely fine, which means they have Kieran Tierney. But I think they changed their game plan because of Kieran Tierney coming into the side. Although he came into midfield like that Zinchenko role, I think they were concerned about the way they were going to progress the ball at the pitch, which meant they had Gabriel Jesus drop back that little bit deeper. This meant that they were able to progress the ball through the lines. However, at that cost, the cost that they had of that was Gabriel Jesus was no longer playing as a central striker, and it meant he was too deep in the play. And you can see that through the average positions. Right, here we have Gabriel, here we have Rob Holding, we have Ben White, and we have Tierney. Tierney came in inside to come and play in midfield next to the likes of Thomas Partey, allowing Granit Xhaka to move forward. But look at Gabriel Jesus' position. This is one I want you to focus on here. He's too deep. He's nowhere near the striking position that he should be. Gabriel Martinelli is by far and away the furthest player forward. Bukayo Saka had a fairly poor game, but Jesus needs to be here to occupy the centre-backs. Sometimes it's good, yes, that a centre-back does not have someone to mark. Sometimes it's good that there is rotation throughout the team. However, it's not good when you have it for such a long period of time, and especially when you're considering how deep Gabriel Jesus dropped. Jamie Carragher in commentary was very complimentary of Gabriel Jesus moving around and floating, but I didn't really like it. I thought that Jesus was far too deep. I didn't think they were able to progress the ball up the pitch as well as they were normally. And they lacked a focal point. They lacked the tip of their spear. They lacked the real dynamism going forwards that could have changed the game for them. And I thought the game was screaming for a striker to be up front, to occupy those centre-backs, and to bring on Eddie Nketiah Sole. I think Mikel Arteta got it wrong. I think they overcompensated for the fact that Kieran Tierney was on the pitch, and I think changing that and not having Zinchenko in the side really messed with Arsenal's heads. Credit to West Ham, however, they did manage to go forward and they did start to create some attacking momentum themselves. If we have a look at this West Ham side, look at how high this line is. Look at that, so impressive. And just to be clear, I can compare this to the Arsenal side as well. Look at how deep Arsenal are. That's Arsenal's position. Remember, Arsenal have most of the ball, but this is West Ham. Proactive, positivity. These are the things that people have been screaming at David Moyes for doing. Tufal and Cresswell being very high and wide. You have Bowen and you have Benrahma coming inside. You have Souček and Paquetá coming inside, making sure that they're aggressive on the Arsenal midfielders, and then you have Antonio making a nuisance of himself. This is extremely positive from West Ham, and considering the position in the table that they're in, this is very, very good. Overall, I was extremely impressed with the way that West Ham played. Declan Rice coming on to Thomas Partey as well, which is the last thing we need to be discussing when we're talking about Arsenal. I thought Partey had an absolute nightmare of a game. 2 out of his 7 ground duels won, and he was at fault for giving the ball away to Declan Rice, who was trying to win the turnover in the transition. Once he gets that, the penalty then happens, and everything goes wrong. Thomas Partey had a nightmare of a game. Bukayo Saka obviously misses his penalty, but I'm not going to dwell on that all too much. Everybody misses a penalty every now and again, and you can't rely on a penalty to be beating a team towards the bottom end of the table, especially if you're Arsenal, especially if you have that start. It's a very concerning thing to have dropped a 2-goal lead for the second game in a row. Doesn't matter who you're playing, the fact that that's happened in a title race is going to be absolutely pivotal and crucial. Finally, let's have a look at some of the statistics, because we can see that Arsenal, yes, dominated the expected goals. They dominated the possession. However, apart from that, West Ham really did most of the play, and really, in a different world, they should have won the game. We can see that Arsenal dominated yet again. Passes, accurate passes, long balls, crosses, everything was in their favour. But the things that we know on this channel that really matter are the duels won, and West Ham won those. Higher duels, higher aerial duels, higher tackles and higher interceptions. West Ham's grit and determination, even though they are 15th in the table, just shows that there is still life in them yet. Enough life to be able to draw with a high-flying Arsenal side. But have they blown it? Is this an Arsenal side that is slowly starting to capitulate? Let me know your thoughts. A very good point for West Ham, a poor point for Arsenal, and the title race takes yet another turn. Finally, let's have a look at the Premier League table before we end, and we have Southampton still in the bottom. We have Leicester and Forest. These are not looking good. 23 points now after 31 games played. Southampton look like they're heading for the drop. What do you think, though? Where are they going to be? Everton with a massive 3-1 loss to Fulham. A big loss for Sean Dyche and his side. Then you have West Ham with their big 2-2 draw, staying in 15th. They now have a real lifeline to stay up. Wolves winning yet again 2-0 against Brentford. Very impressive. Crystal Palace again with another big win over that Southampton side. 2-0 for them. Chelsea are not going to be dragged into a relegation fight, surely. No, they won't be. They'll be absolutely fine. However, their form is extremely terrifying, and considering they have teams like Arsenal still to play, considering they have teams in and around them they still have to play, it's not looking great. Fulham, Brentford and Liverpool make up your next 3. Liverpool still have to play Leeds. However, at the time of recording, when we move up the table, we can see that Brighton are just above them, still with 2 games in hand, along with Liverpool over the rest of the teams. Aston Villa with a massive win They have gone from 16th position when they sacked Unai Emery to now 6th. That is such a great turnaround, but Tottenham losing 3-2 to Bournemouth. I mean, what a performance from that Bournemouth side, but Tottenham throwing it away. It's just not looking like it's going to be their year for the top 4. Newcastle being let off the hook by Tottenham for that place. Tottenham having played a game more with 31. Newcastle with 30, however, being 3 points further ahead. Manchester United winning against Nottingham Forest, capitalising on Tottenham and Newcastle dropping points. Is that their position in the top 4 secured? Let me know your thoughts. And then finally, we have Man City beating Leicester by 3-1. A very, very comfortable game that was essentially finished within the first 30 minutes of the match. Then Man City cruised to that victory. Arsenal dropping points, which means that there is now only a difference of 4 points between the two. Man City have a game in hand, and they still have to play each other in the Premier League. So my question to you before we end is, who's winning the title? Who do you see coming out on top? And tell me why. I would love to hear from you. That's it for today, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave the video with a like and subscribe if you haven't to more content like this coming very soon. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. You don't want to miss what's coming up in the near future. And of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about everything we've talked about and how your team has done this weekend. Tell me who you support and how they have done. I would love to hear from you. But like I said, that's it from me for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care of yourselves and bye-bye.